And to talk more about the budget, I'm now joined by Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy. He's a senior economist. He's joining us now from Chennai. Dr. Professor Bhanumurthy, first of all, your initial reactions to the budget.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate the Finance Minister and our team for presenting a very growth-oriented and also the budget which has some kind of a long-term focus. As the Prime Minister already very clearly mentioned, this budget is meant for job creation, MSME development, and also for the Vikasit Bharat. So in that sense, the Finance Minister actually balanced many of the challenges that Indian economy is facing right now. And I also would like to compliment the team that produced the economic survey, where the many ideas from that economic survey has been implemented in the current budget, especially where when the economic survey talks about the deregulation, there is a special focus of deregulation in the budget, and also the survey's emphasis on triggering the domestic levers for growth is also being addressed. To that extent, the Finance Minister actually balanced both growth and at the same time the concerns of the jobs and also the concerns of the rating agencies that are looking at very carefully about our fiscal numbers.
Okay. All right, let's go sector by sector. Let's first begin with the MSMEs. How does this budget, how will this budget boost the MSME sector?
Well, I think there are 3 or 4 direct measures that has been brought in the budget. One of them is increasing credit to the MSME sector, and also
an additional 1.5 lakh crore credit guarantee for the MSMEs.
Yeah. And then they also introduced credit card scheme for micro enterprises. And there are also incentive for MSME exporters. So generally we think MSMEs are generally manufacturing, but I think the budget identifies MSME services also, the exporters also. And I think all these measures will actually have some impact on the expansion of the MSME sector. Again, yesterday, the economic survey, there is a separate chapter on MSME. And I think some of those recommendations have been implemented in the budget. Of course, there are many more. Going forward, I'm sure the government will address those concerns also. Overall, I think the point is we need to see that the share of MSME sector, both in terms of growth as well as job creation, should go up. And at the same time, they will be part of, a larger formal sector. So to that extent, I think the proposals have been really welcoming, and I'm sure they'll be responding more positively in terms of expanding the whole MSME sector. In fact, even the financial sector, particularly the banking sector, will also look at little more positively in terms of providing loans to the MSME sector after the policy that is being laid out in the budget.
All right. Agriculture, let's talk about agriculture. How does the budget plan to boost agriculture?
Well, agriculture, in fact, you have seen the allocations to the agriculture sector has not really gone down. I mean, there is some discussion about it, but if you look at the fine print, there is an increase in the allocation for the agriculture sector. But I think we need to look at, again, agriculture not in a separate entity. We need to look at agriculture and allied activities. So the lot of growth seems to be happening on the allied agriculture activity. And again, the economic survey talks about the diversification of the agriculture sector. So some of the policies that has been made today, especially increasing the credit under the Kisan credit card, that will also lead to larger expansion of the agriculture sector. The underlying policy objective of increasing the share of agriculture sector by at least 1 percentage point is something that is doable with some of the policies that is being brought in today.
Okay. Let's look at defense allocation. There is a slight exchange, increase over the next year, but over the last year, sorry. But it really, falls short of the kind of firepower the Indian defense sector needs, especially if you want to, make in India and boost the defense production and also the defense needs of the forces.
Well, we need to see a substantial increase in the defense allocation. That I think there is
about 9.5%.
Yeah, there is no second opinion on that. But at the same time, our effort is also to see whether we can utilize the whole domestic capacity to enhance the defense capability. Between the imports and domestic production, I'm sure the domestic production is going to be little more cost effective compared to the imports. So maybe there is some calculation going around that, depend more on the domestic production. But having said that, these numbers can change depending on the requirement. And I'm sure going forward, there will be at least couple of supplementary demand for grants. So the defense sector, if it is required, I'm sure the government can accommodate those additional allocations in the supplementary demand, supplementary budgets.
Professor Bhanumurthy, why haven't they been, even in the defense, for example, or the capex, utilize all allocation? Last year, capex allocation could not be utilized. Now, this fiscal year, there is only a marginal increase in that, saying that the focus would be now on, using the whole allocation. Is there a structural problem with that?
Well, I was the one who argued for a larger capex for a long time. And in fact, the capex multiplier that is being talked about is based on our study. So I have been arguing that I think when the economy was down, going for a higher capex was a better option. And I think we have done well in the last 3 years. But what happened in the current, that is FY25, we have clearly seen the kind of constraints that the governments face in terms of pushing some of the big ticket projects under the public investment. And more so that happened in the current year because of the elections that we had. And also some of the elections happened in the bigger states like Maharashtra. So both at the central level as well as the state level, there were constraints in terms of pushing the capital expenditures, than what is budgeted. Having said that, even despite all this limitation, the revised estimate suggests somewhere close to 10.2 lakh crore has been invested in the current year, that is FY25. So I don't really see that as a major constraints going forward. Now that we have budgeted 11.2 lakh crore with a little more allocation to the states from 1.3 to 1.5 lakh crore. So we see more opportunity, at least in my view, we see more opportunity at the state level. And I hope FY26 we'll see a much better capex, both at the union level as well as the state government's level.
Okay. So let's talk about energy transition. Is the budget pushing for energy transition, given that the National Manufacturing Mission and the Nuclear Energy Mission have been, there is a focus or spotlight on that?
Well, again, I don't think that is going to be limited to the budget. It needs a slightly different strategy. And the last budget, we have seen there are more incentives have been given for energy transition. And this time, I think there's a little more focus, at least at the headlines, we have seen that the focus more on nuclear energy and all those aspects. But I guess this is a work in progress and need not be limited to the budget. We should be looking at some more actions going forward on that area.
All right. So let's see how this all plays out in this fiscal year. Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.